Let's focus on one issue on the agenda for many of the NATO leaders, the threat of ISIS. And let's continue that discussion with Florida Senator Bill Nelson, senior member of the Senate Committee on Armed Services. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for coming in.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. A lot on the table for NATO leaders. One of the big issues, as I said, is the threat against ISIS. And you are calling for a vote to make clear any question of the legal authority that the president would have to strike ISIS in Syria. The president has, though, Senator, has not yet said that he wants to strike ISIS in Syria quite yet. Why call for a vote before the president lays out that strategy?
Well, I believe that the president has the constitutional authority to strike in Syria to protect America and our national security. But this is not going to be a 1 or 2 day strike. This is going to be a long-term affair, and as a result, we may as well have the Constitution followed, which is that the Congress declares war. Now, as you know, the president has the authority from a previous law to protect American interest in Iraq. And thus far, he has been very successful in employing airstrikes along with the ground troops of either the Kurds or the Iraqi army. To go into Syria, legal scholars will debate as to whether or not he needs that by the Congress declaring it. And that's why I'm proposing this. And let's just get the question settled once and for all. If we don't deal with ISIS now, we are certainly going to have to deal with them in the future.
And I think it's important when you point out the fact that it's not going to be a short-term engagement, and that's why you think that the Constitution should be followed and a vote should be had. Because we spoke with a Republican member of the House earlier in the show, and he said that he doesn't think that the president necessarily needs any additional authority. Are you hearing the same from your colleagues? Because many are wondering if you're going to get the vote at all.
Well, my personal feeling is that the president can strike to protect American interest.
Right.
He's already, for example, put boots on the ground in Syria when they tried to rescue the journalist with a special operations team. But we're talking about a threat to America where they say they will not stop until the black flag of ISIS is hanging over the White House. So we're in this for the long haul. Notice the president's already taken action. August the 25th, he started the surveillance flights over Syria. So the planning is underway. The Pentagon is on full alert. Now the question is, let's give the go from the Congress so that there is no question as to the legal authority.
Are you confident you will get a vote on this legislation?
Well, sooner or later we will, because this, again, is not going to be a short-term affair.
Do you think you'll get it before midterms? Because everyone, of course, wonders how the political calendar plays into the decision that, might put some of your colleagues in a tough spot, some would say.
Well, I can't imagine our senators running for re-election that their constituents are not saying with these beheadings, with ISIS having so much American equipment, having captured it from the Iraqi army in Mosul, most of that equipment back in Syria, having taken over the banks, now not only that cash, but producing income from all the oil wells that they have. This is a real threat to America, to our allies, to the freedom-loving peoples of the world. And how many more beheadings is it going to take to get people to realize what we're dealing with? That's why I think we'll have the success in a vote.
Do you think in the end, you talked about boots on the ground in Syria in terms of that special operations to rescue the American journalist. Do you think boots on the ground is inevitable? I ask you this because the Deputy National Security Advisor, Tony Blinken, was on earlier in the show speaking to Chris, and he said over and over again, we're not having combat boots on the ground. Will not go back to the way that it was when we were in Iraq. That is not in the cards. However, Secretary Hagel, speaking to our Jim Sciutto, also made the point, he said this: to your larger point about just airstrikes, no, just airstrikes alone won't fulfill or accomplish what the mission is. Do you think boots on the ground is an inevitability in order to destroy ISIS?
When you do a major military operation, you leave opportunities for all kinds of contingencies. It is clearly the intention of the United States that we are not going to put a land army in Syria. But to achieve an objective, you have to give yourself the flexibility to achieve that goal that you're trying. Now, right now, we're being very successful in Iraq by the employment of boots on the ground of the Iraqi forces and the Kurds. With our airstrikes. What we find in Syria, we'll have to deal with at the time. And so if the objective is to cut off the head of the snake, the ISIS snake in Syria, then that's what we're going to have to do.
Do you think the president to this point, though, has kind of talked himself, if you will, into a corner by being so adamant about what the administration will not do in terms of boots on the ground?
No, I don't. I think the president has been very deliberative. He's been cool under pressure. He's started the surveillance flights. He's working a coalition. It's a coalition not just with somebody like the Free Syrian Army, which is on the ground fighting ISIS in Syria right now, but he's working it with all our coalition partners in NATO as we speak this minute. And so I think he's preparing us in the way that a commander-in-chief ought to.
Senator Bill Nelson of Florida. Senator, it's always great to have you on. We'll be looking forward to see what happens when you and your fellow lawmakers return to Washington, if that vote will be happening maybe in the near future. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day.
Thanks so much.